No. I want to welcome everybody to the session zero of what will hopefully be a long running and wonderful campaign with five mostly strangers who are going to play this game together and have a lot of fun and kill a lot of people and solve a lot of quests and help a lot of people and do all the fun things that contains within Dungeons and Dragons. So, first and foremost, thank you guys for taking the time and taking a chance to join this. I think it's going to be something fun. I think it's going to be something different. And I think, honestly, it's going to be a lot of learning about ourselves and our characters, and it's going to be a fun time. So, with that being said, I wanted to start this session zero out, and I always go back and forth and back and forth, and I make a list and I don't like it, and I make a list and I don't like it. I was browsing Reddit and I found an awesome checklist for session zero. It is user Haze Fade. I'm going to link it in the chat and I'll put it in the video description as well. But it's a soup to nuts. Obviously, I'm going to modify it. We've had some conversations before this, generally speaking, about characters and worlds and things like that. But I'm going to run with it because I think it is super useful and I think it's super good. And we're just going to go right down the line. It's going to be a lot of talking, but it's going to be a dialogue, right? This isn't just me lording over you, as the game will be, right? This is going to be completely cooperative, and it's going to be us all working together to have the most fun. Sound good? Yes? Good.
Hell yeah.
Cool. First thing out of the gate, the ethics conversation, right? Like, don't say or do anything that you wouldn't want your mother or grandmother to hear you saying or doing, right? Bigotry of all kind, no. You can fucking swear all you want, but the rest of that is kind of off limits. And that kind of goes into the next part of this is uncomfortable, right? If something makes you uncomfortable, if you don't like the way that something's going, if there's something particularly that is upsetting to you, either tell me offline, tell one of your players. This is an open discussion. This is an open forum, and I want it to be like that. I don't want there to be any division. I don't want there to be something that makes somebody upset, pissed off, unhappy. I want everybody to have fun. So if something like that comes up, please reach out to me. Please let me know. We gravy on that? Give me one of these. Head nods don't work. I need some visual because I'm not looking at you guys right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Wonderful.
Sure.
The very beginning of this session zero checklist is, for me, the player behavior, game behavior, and what my expectations are. Unannounced dice rolls is something where a player rolls a dice for something that I have no context on, or something that they're like preloading a roll because they know I'm going to ask them. The second one is cool and the first one is not. A lot of the times I'll put it out there for a different roll than maybe what you were expecting to ask to roll. So try to keep those to a minimum. Roll your dice when prompted. We're going to be using Roll20 as the primary mechanism for rolling dice. I have no problem if you guys want to physically roll dice to put them in, like, physically on your lap and tell me what you rolled. But because we are using Roll20, I'm not going to be watching that. So I need you guys to tell me what you rolled. Does that make sense? Also, it's a better experience for the people who, if anyone, ends up watching this, because a lot of times that part of the screen isn't going to be visible to them. So definitely announce what you roll. Make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Dope.
For sure.
PvP. Tension between people. That's as long as we're role playing, perfectly fine, right? I don't have any problem with that. I think that there is a line that would be too much. But as far as player versus player things go, yeah, I think it's fine. So long as it makes sense, it isn't disruptive, it isn't petty, and it is something that you could actually see a human being doing under the circumstances that they are presented. Does that jive with everyone?
Hell yeah.
Question, comments, concerns?
No, in fact, just based on what you were talking about, what I've found too is in games that I've run that if you've got an idea that your character has a quirk that, say, they don't like orcs, and one of the other characters decides to be a half orc,
Right.
then you talk to the character or talk to the player first and say, hey, I think this could be a cool dynamic between us.
Precisely.
Do you have a problem with it?
Yep.
Rather than just springing at him on him in game saying, I hate you.
Yeah, conversation, and that's, I think, like the key. I was talking to somebody on Twitter today. Like, that's, I think, the key to what exactly session 0 is like communication, right? Something that you like, something you don't like, not just in the game but out of the game, right? So yeah, like you said, that's a great point. We will definitely consider that, which kind of ties into the next thing, which are player character secrets. I think it's wonderful. We're going to go through the steps here and we're going to create all of our characters right now. But if there are certain things that nobody would know about you, that maybe one person wouldn't know, I'm fine with that. I feel like it adds a lot of interesting parts that bring depth to character. Most people aren't just an open book. Most people keep their biggest insecurities hidden away, right? So it makes sense that along this process of building the characters, there would be something or that maybe you wouldn't want everyone to know. If that's the case, feel free to shoot me a message, and we can either talk about it in another video call or we'll do just a text chat. Does that make sense?
For sure.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Next is player expectations. So that's where this is more of a you conversation than a me conversation. I have a general feeling, talking to each one of you individually, what it is you expect to get from this. What are your favorite parts? What are your least favorite parts of the game? It's a super diverse game. We could spend hours doing one thing and one thing only, but there's a lot to do. So what are I kind of want to go around the room. Like, what do you, just so you can hear everybody else say it too, right? What do you like about the game, and what gets you going about D&D? Why don't we start in the top right, which is different for everybody. Haha, Brent.
Your top right or my top right?
This one. Brent, give me a shot. What do you got for me?
Okay, well, what I'm most looking forward to is, my understanding is this is a group of fairly experienced players. I want to get into the depth of role play and developing characters dynamically as the story goes.
Awesome.
That's what I love most about role-playing games. And, ultimately the rules, the dice rolls, everything like that is secondary. And if I had my druthers, we'd get rid of all of it.
I'm with it. I kind of like the idea of that, right? Because then I can just actually be God and decide if things work or not, instead of having the dice gods decide. Cool. Jet, what do you got?
What I'm really looking forward to is I've always been very heavily interested in fiction, fantasy, fictional worlds. So what I'm really looking for is really exploring that character development, especially in a large and complex world with a very heavy focus on lore, hopefully.
Cool.
So yep, that's one.
World building, role play, right on. Dylan, what do you got for me, man?
I mean, similar veins. I definitely like all the things you guys have said. I really like discovering things. So I think I expect a lot of our characters are going to be newer to life or newer to exploring, and the sense of finding something new or learning a new secret or that's always a very exciting experience. I think what appeals to you the most.
Yeah, awesome. And I don't know how to say that name. Say it for me, Ola Mayer.
You got it. You hit it. Yeah, definitely exploring. Definitely the randomness of interactions, just the crazy shit that happens when you put people in a situation and shit comes up. But I am a definitely combat focused. I love that shit.
Nice.
I am hooked on that like crack. So
good. So
combat loot, give me the loot kind of shit. That too, for sure.
That's awesome, right? So we have all similar things that kind of tie into each other, which is why I think this is going to be a strong group, right? Because they all work together. It's not like one of those things has to be separate from the other thing. And I think that that's cool, right? So I'm big on making sure that, like I said, everybody has fun. And I think that that's an awesome way to do it. When it comes to game balance and fairness, I think I'm pretty good at balancing encounters. I usually am able to, depending on what my goal is with the encounter, make it easy, kind of hard, threatening, or you should probably just surrender because they're going to kill you. I think I am, but if you think that something was imbalanced, if you think that something was unfair, please tell me. However, transitioning into rules debates, I'm more than happy to say that I get rules wrong most of the time. I'll say most of the time because it's easier that way. If I got something wrong, tell me in the game, we're cool. That's fine. If it devolves and I think I'm right and you think you're right and everybody else is kind of like, it could go either way, then we're just going to go with what I said and we'll talk about it offline after the fact, just to keep the pacing up and just to keep things moving. Nothing slows the game down more than searching something and looking for this quote and looking for that quote. So always feel free to tell me I'm wrong, but we're going to keep it moving in the same vein. Does that make sense? Coolio. Meta knowledge. Yes. Metagaming. The dirty cousin of Dungeons and Dragons. I think meta knowledge is bad, right? Like, I think it's bad. But the reason that I think it's bad isn't because it's like cheating or isn't because it's whatever. The reason I don't like meta knowledge is because it's completely contrary to the game that we're playing. We're playing a game where you are as hard as you can trying to put yourself in the shoes of this person. So meta knowledge can't really exist, right? That comes down to battle, that comes down to social situations. And in creating these characters today, you may want to have conversations amongst yourselves with regards to what your capabilities are and what it is that you're good at before you're in a situation where you need to use it, right? That way we can get rid of all those shenanigans right out of the starting gate. Yeah. So, and I'm lax with it too, right? Like, I expect you to self-report. I expect you to police yourselves. You know, it's the honor system. And yeah, you can win the game, I guess, but not really if nobody else is having fun. Questions, comments, concerns? We're keeping it rolling otherwise.
No, I agree with you there. You know, it drives me nuts when players will be gathered together and be like, okay, who has the best stealth score?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And it's just, you know, it's not bad. It's just not super productive. You know, it's, if you're putting yourself in the person's shoes, then, you know, you're putting yourself in their shoes. So that covers that section. Next is the DM. So my DM style. I do a lot of preparation. I have a lot of things planned for a lot of different things that you'll encounter throughout the games with regards to lore, with regards to mysteries, with regards to the surrounding. That being said, I'm fully capable of improvising. So I don't want you to do something that you think would slow the game down, or I wouldn't be prepared for, so we're just going to do something else. Feel free to have the autonomy to make whatever decision you want, and I'm signing up to play the same game that you are, right? Don't be a jerk, right? But in the same respect, have fun with it. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's another part of my DMing style is I'm good at picturing the thing in my head, and I try to make it so you can. But if you can't, or you want more detail, or you want to know something that I haven't described, always ask me a question. The more questions that you're asking, not only are you more invested in the game, but it's a better picture for everybody, and it's an easier way for everybody to understand, because there's a good chance if you're wondering something, somebody else might be too. You dig? Coolio.
Big.
Player narrative. You guys are going to tell this story. You guys are going to craft this. I'm putting you in a world that I have created where there are parts that are in motion, but by and large, the decisions that you make as a collective will absolutely 100% influence the way that the story goes. I think I kind of made that clear when we all talked about it, when I met with you individually, but I want to emphasize that again, right? Like, I'm not, if you look around and find yourselves in a bad situation, there's a pretty good chance you did it to yourselves. Right? Cool. Pet peeves. Let's see. Well, I don't like it when it's too cold. No. So my biggest pet peeve is I don't like presumptuous. Don't be presumptuous about the outcome or the way that things are going to go. If you're right, then wave it in my face and be like, I told you, motherfucker, that was going to happen. But don't ruin it for anybody else if you do know it, right? That makes sense. Also, something that I want to emphasize too is it's cool for sometimes, but if you guys are in a situation where you're all active in a scene or in a scenario, I want your mics to not be on mute. It's cool for now because we're, it's mostly just me lecturing. But when it comes to the game, I want you to not have to be on mute, because if you have to think about unmuting yourself before you say something, it slows down the flow of the conversation and the actions that you take, right? Cool. All right, so now we're going to talk about the mechanics and always hotly debated mechanic rules, right? The first thing on here is the ready action. Are you guys familiar with that, Jet? Are you familiar with the ready in action? I know that most of you are. Jet, you're a little less. Do you know what the ready action is? Ready and action, excuse me?
Not really.
Okay, so an option in combat is when a specific set of circumstances happens, then your character does a specific thing. For example, when my friend comes running around this corner, I'm going to grab him and pull him in this door. So that's your turn. You take that on your turn as an action. So if your friend comes running around the corner, you're going to pull him in the door. However, if a monster comes running around the corner, you will do nothing. Does that make sense? So it's a specific action that takes place under a specific circumstance that uses your action.
Right.
We can do a little more talking online after that, but I'm pretty strict with the circumstances that are described, because there's a lot of times where it gives the player too much of an advantage, I think, to just generally ready general action. Like, I want specificity when it comes to readying things. But we can talk more about that, Jet, if you're unfamiliar with it. It's pretty high level shit, so don't worry too much about it. And it doesn't happen all the time. But when it does, just know that's what I'm looking for. Anybody else have any questions?
It uses up your reaction on that, correct?
It uses your action and your reaction, correct?
I got you. Yeah.
Yes.
Just
Now,
clarifying.
I've seen a couple GMs do it differently. I've had some say that if you do anything else in your turn, like if you move over to a lever and then want to ready the action, whatever, if you've moved, you can't ready an action. You have to already be at the lever. How are you planning?
No, I disagree with that. I think that's silly. I think it's fine for you to do. You could even use a bonus action if you have one available. Use your movement, use a bonus action, and say my action this turn is going to be I'm pulling this lever when this happens. But the thing has to happen. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so full turn, it is just the action. The ready an action. Weird to say, but I hope that makes sense. And you guys all think that's good? Cool? Great.
Yep.
Moving on. Bonus actions. The only thing that I change, and occasionally it will come up where there will be a certain mechanic or a certain thing that I insert in the game that takes a bonus action. But generally speaking, the only thing that I do that is a bonus action that kind of shifts the balance a little bit in your favor is drinking potions. You got a potion, be it healing, be it flying, whatever the thing is, that's a bonus action for me. I don't know. I've always played like that, and I think it doesn't make it broken, so I kind of like it. Plus, a lot of classes don't have anything to do on a bonus action, so maybe they're thirsty. Repeated party roles. So that kind of ties into like, I'm trying to pick a lock, and I don't pick the lock properly. So then the next person comes and tries to pick the lock, and they don't pick it properly. And then the next person comes and tries to pick the lock, and then they don't pick it properly. Occasionally, I'll allow two different people to attempt the same task, depending on what the task is, if it is reasonable that another different person could perform it. But I usually go with the assist, right? So you come up and help him or her, and they get advantage on the roll. Generally, that's how I do it. There's some times where I'll ask for group perception checks or group investigation checks or things like that, one person sees the thing around the corner and nobody else does. Circumstantially it makes sense, but generally you're getting 1 to 2 shots at doing things. Julio?
Cool.
Nice. I play with inspiration. I think it's fun. I will give out a point of inspiration for what I see fit. I don't do it very often. I think in the campaign that I have, we've played 12 times. I've done it once. But like role-playing, creativity, things like that, you can only have one at a time. And if you get 1 point of inspiration when you already have 1 point of inspiration, you still only have 1 point of inspiration, right? So don't be afraid to use it. But I think it's fun. I think it lends itself to encouraging you guys to be more creative and role play better. And it's out there as a carrot on a stick. Got to have them carrots. Advantage, disadvantage. You have advantage, you have disadvantage, or you're rolling 1 dice. If you have 2 forms of advantage, you're rolling advantage. If you have 2 forms of disadvantage, you're rolling disadvantage. There's not like multiple things stacking up. No, just 2, 1, 2. That's it. Coolio?
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Crits. So crits, I play. You have to declare it beforehand, but you can either say I'm going to double my number that I roll, or I'm going to roll double the dice. I don't care which one you do, but before you roll the damage, you've got to tell me. Make sense?
That's fair.
Critical successes on skill checks are just the number. The number is the number is the number, because there are some things that are for example, like an a history check on something that your character would have no way ever encountered. If you roll a 20, I'm not going to tell you what it is unless you beat the DC for it. And the same goes for critical failures. I'll narrate something in a funny way, but for the most part, you're not going to roll a 1 in combat and drop your sword for 2 turns, or fall and break your leg and then you need to get it amputated. Like, I'm not, no, because there's a 5% chance that's going to happen every time, and that can seriously mess with a lot of things. So we're not doing that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Wunderbar. Stealth. So a lot of times I'll ask you how you're moving, and there are 3 speeds. You are moving quickly, which means your speed is fast and you have disadvantage on perception checks. You are moving normally, which means your speed is normal and you have regular perception checks. Or you are moving stealthily, which means your speed is halved, but you have advantage on perception checks. Get it?
Yep.
So you're moving a lot slower, but you're seeing more, versus you're moving a lot faster and you're seeing less. I think it makes sense. I think it's fair. There's no like, I want to go like 65% speed. People, no, you're going 150 or 0. Like that. Those are the speeds. This is the stealth thing is it's a tricky subject, I think, because in a lot of places I'm going to have like a place where you couldn't realistically be hidden, right? Like if you're in a freshly plowed field, like you're not shorter than the grass if you lay down. So it's hard for me. So I do realistic stealth is what I call it, realistic stealth. And I coined that myself, and it's probably dumb and wrong. And feel free to tell me that. I'm more than happy to accept that criticism. But like, if there's a place to hide, you can hide. If there's not, sorry.
Unless we wave our hand and said, these are not the droids you're looking for.
Precisely. Then in that case, those would not be them, which I don't know why. I wasn't even looking. Dope. NPCs and creatures. Vendors. Vendors are going to be, it depends on the town. They're town specific, especially like the way that the markets and prices work. Generally speaking, a poor town is going to have less variety to their goods and cheaper prices. And the same goes for a larger town, but the other way. More variety of goods, more expensive prices, and also more seasoned merchants. You're not going to come into a large town that has 20,000 people in it, that this guy sees 25, 50 people a day, and expect to pull one over on him every time you walk in the door and save 30%, right? It's possible, but have some understanding that it would be, you can't walk into a store here and negotiate. Well, you couldn't, we'll say when you could negotiate, you couldn't talk people down that easily anyway, and that's kind of how I'm going to play with that. Magical items. If you attune to something, you know the properties of it. All of the properties of it. Unless it is cursed. The only way that you will learn that something is cursed is either through the identify spell or being cursed and like finding out that there's something weird going on with you. You may not even know the origin of it. But that's how I do that. Things resize. I'm not a stickler for that. If you find a magic pair of pants and you're a gnome, you can wear them. It is a game. It is a game. It doesn't make sense. These are gnomish pants. Sorry, you can't wear them and get whatever the benefit is. That's silly to me. What's your shoe size for these boots of flying? Sorry, it's out of stock. Like, come
I'm gonna be disappointed if we don't find magic pants now.
No, that's the whole fucking quest. Is magic pants. Get ready. Buckle up.
I seriously expect magic pants now. Like, if we don't find magic pants, I'm going to be disappointed.
No, they'll be magic. They'll also be cursed.
Cursed pants.
Cursed magic pants. Spells and spell effects. This is another one. Material components. I kind of want you guys to have as much freedom with those as you want to have, right? If you're casting a spell that consumes a material component, like Find Familiar, if you're regularly casting that spell, you're going to need to have those specific components with you. But other than that, I'm here to have fun. If it's fun for you guys to pick out tar and a feather and cast a spell every time, and you want to go to the store and buy fucking tar and feather, then I promise you that sometimes they're not going to sell it. No, but then that's going to be something that's available in the game for you, right? Like that. I'm fine with that. If you want to have an arcane focus, druidic focus, whatever the case might be, I'm game. However you want to roll with it, let's do it. Make sense? Yep. Wonderbar.
Yep.
Spell abuse, specifically guidance. I'm having a talk about guidance. Guidance is a very good spell. Guidance is something that helps, especially at lower levels. It shifts a lot of things in a lot of ways. That being said, if you're not next to somebody and if somebody declares doing an action before you cast the guidance spell on them, they don't get guidance, right? If somebody is doing something and you're not in the immediate vicinity, or somebody's getting ready to do something, it's a touch spell. So you got to figure out how to get them guidance before they perform whatever the action is. Guidance specifically is what I'm talking about, but there are a lot of spells that this applies to as well. I just think that's a good example, and that's definitely something that's going to come up. Does that seem fair?
I plan on running guidance, so give me the ideal spot. So because my thought is I'm going to see someone, like, for example, investigating something or doing something. So like I'm beside them, I start to see them investigate, and then I walk over to them, touch them, and I'm like, hey, maybe you should hold at this area.
Totally
That's a
fine.
valid. They've already declared they're investigating.
Well, no, I think that would be fine. I think that kind of what I'm talking about is it just depends. Like that situation, I think there would be no problem. Right? You're in the room, you're doing the same
guidance
thing.
On everything, because he's good.
Yeah, but I mean, it just kind of depends.
I think those rules will probably come more into play with me if I'm considering playing a bard. So in that case, bardic inspiration, timing is going to be very important.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, right? Like, I don't want to in any way hamper the things that you guys are capable of doing, especially if you're doing something that makes the group better, because that's awesome. Teamwork makes the dream work. But having it be, just, like a fucking candy basket where you're throwing, get a guidance, and you get a guidance, and you get a guidance, and it's fine and it's mechanically fair, but like, as long as it makes sense, we're rolling with it. And,
what are your thoughts on the players seeking guidance? Like, hey, I'm going to go over here. Can you mind if you lend me a hand?
Yeah. I mean, assuming that they know you can. Assuming they know you can do that. And I think that might be probably the way to go with it.
The better way.
Yeah, because then it's like, first of all, it encourages you to role play. Right. Right? Like, I think that makes sense. Like, your character wouldn't necessarily know that he's going to try to jump over that fence.
Right.
Okay,
mind lending me a helping hand over here and guide me along with.
Perfect. Exactly.
I see you know how to jump. You're a man who knows how to jump.
Yeah. Sweet. And when it comes to like tweaks, and this is true for the character part, which we almost are there, but not yet. if you want to tweak spells for flavor, if you want to change the way that things look, hell yeah, do it. You know, like if something's weird, Chill Touch is a great example. It's like a ranged spell that makes a hand, so it's called Chill Touch, but it's not cold damage. It's that thing's all fucked up. So if you want to change things like that that make more sense, do it. Yeah, I don't care. If you want to, you know, I have a spore druid right now who in the other campaign, and she doesn't have mushroom spores. She has little dandelion spores that come out, and it's like flavorly different, but mechanically the same. I'm all for things like that. And the same thing goes for class features and spells. So always feel free to ask if you want to do something a certain way, because I'm more than likely going to say yes. Dope. All
Cool.
right. Yes.
The two others, you didn't mention these. I'm guessing you don't have strong opinions on them. But the two other spells I know sometimes DMs care about. I wrote them down in advance.
Perfect.
The first is Leomin's Tiny Hut, which I know like some DMs can be a little careful about like the degree to which that protects you from things. And Comprehend Languages, which, because it's a first level spell, can kind of avoid a whole swath of scenarios.
Yeah. So the Tiny Hut is fair and balanced. I have no problem with the way that spell works, the way that spell exists. I've killed a lot of players who thought they were safe in the Tiny Hut, so it's perfectly fine.
Can be dispelled, yeah, and done under.
But yeah, I'm you know, feel free to engage with that. Comprehend Languages is a tricky one. I assume you're talking specifically about like ritually casting the spell.
Yeah.
Do it. It's a 10-minute ritual. But do it. I'm not going to say no to that. By all means, shoot the shot. You know, I don't have an issue with either of them. I think it's perfectly. Cool. I think it's perfectly acceptable. Any other questions along those lines with regards to spells or certain things like that?
I guess more of a style thing. But how much do you like to have us narrate what happens when a spell is cast versus how much do you like to narrate?
I mean, I think. I mean, I would definitely prefer you guys to do that. There are times where, even if you want to just conceptually give me, even if you just want to conceptually give me an idea of the way you cast it, and then I'll run from there. But I think that it makes your character who you are, and I like that. And I think that you know, I fully embrace that, and I hope you guys do too.
Sounds good. I'm going to refill my drink, but I can still hear you guys. I just turned my volume up.
Nice. All right, cool. Next is Death. Bum, bum, bum. My favorite.
There'll be none of that.
My favorite part of the game is Death. So I would say always have some kind of backup character ready to go. I think it's safe that way. I'm going to constantly joke about killing you, and then I'm probably going to as well.
Our first encounter, 10 level 10 dragons.
Yeah, right. Oh, sorry. Try again. Yeah, no. But honestly, like, I think it's better that way. And you don't have to, but it kind of is what it is, right? The only other thing that comes into that is when you're knocked unconscious and you're bounced back up to 1 hit point, you get a level of exhaustion. That's different from rules as written. Some people play with it, some people don't. I think that it kind of makes sense, right? And it prevents the ping pong of like, I'm up, I'm down, I'm up, I'm down, I'm up, I'm down, I'm up, I'm down, I'm up, I'm down. Because the, you know, 6th or 7th time, you're gonna be like, they keep going down. If they, this is, we have to get out of this situation. We can't, so there are, that's something that I do. What do you guys think about that?
I like that because, well, also I think it fixes one of the fundamental flaws.
Mm-hmm.
Healing word is completely broken.
Healing word is very good.
And so,
Yeah.
you know, it keeps like you said, okay, you're up again, bing, from across the room.
Yeah.
And
because realistically, if you're being knocked unconscious that many times, it's going to start to take a toll on you, right? Like you are a special individual, but you are not a,
invincible.
Yeah.
person.
That makes
Makes
complete sense to me. How do you? There's like half orcs and berserkers. I think no half
Yeah,
orcs and zealous barbarians. They can like come back if they get knocked down.
That's no exhaustion on that. Specifically
Cool.
on the 0 to deaths. If you're taking death saves, you're taking a point of exhaustion. That's how that is, right? So don't worry about any of those other things. If it prevents you from dying, it prevents you from dying. There's a couple sorcerers maybe or a monk. Yeah, don't worry about that.
If they take a healing word before a death save, do they come back with a level of exhaustion?
Yeah, if you're knocked unconscious and then you're brought back, you have a level of exhaustion.
Yeah. Nothing like the immediate junk. I got you.
Yeah. You
like the initial racial trait. I got you.
Cool. Resting rules. A long rest always starts with a short rest. So if you get interrupted in your long rest and it's been an hour while you've long rested, you at least get the benefits of a short rest, and you can roll hit dice and whatever abilities you have come back. Cool beans?
Yep.
All right. Now on to we talked a lot already offline about character creation. The only rule that I haven't talked to you about is multi-classing. Multi-classing is strictly prohibited. Well, it isn't. Not at all, actually. It's encouraged, but here's the thing. It has to make sense, right? It has to make sense. If your character has been involved with something that would make sense for you to multi-class, then we'll talk about multi-classing. I'm not going to force it on you, but it is something that, so long as it makes sense for what the character has been doing, has been progressing through, then absolutely. If you have a multi-class in mind that you want to do, discuss it with me beforehand, and I won't railroad you or anything, but I'll put you in situations that would enable your character to make choices that would eventually get them to that point. Does that make sense? Because it's cool and it's strong. Not really. I mean, I think the core classes are fucking strong, but not being said, there are some sick combos out there that would have to make sense for your character to pull off.
I can't just wake up in the morning and decide I'm a sorcerer.
Right. Yeah. Like that. Honestly, though, that would probably be how I would do it.
Took a long nap.
Be
Woke up feeling pretty sorceress.
Yeah. But I would be like, oh, you fell asleep and a bolt of lightning struck you in your chest, and now you're a sorcerer.
Shazam!
Yeah. Right.
I did see an interesting theory on not necessarily multi-classing, but leveling up on Reddit. The guy was saying that when he DMs, when he levels the characters up, or after whatever you get to level up, he does like a little mini montage to like each individual character, to how you learned your next level of spells, as opposed to just like, you leveled up, now you know how to magically cast this crazy shit.
Yeah,
it's an interesting theory.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, let's face it. I mean, 5e rules as they are kind of punish you for multi-classing too.
Yeah. They put a pretty strict limit on it as well, and you don't get the capstones. And
are you planning to do XP or milestone?
Yeah, so that's the next thing. I do milestone. You get to a certain point, you make a certain choice, you get to a place, you solve a problem, you help, whatever the case might be. That's how we'll do leveling. Something else that I do by myself, and I don't know that other people do this, is when you level, first of all, you're not going to level in the middle of the session ever. But you might level up in the middle of something. And when you do level up, it is like Skyrim. Like, you have everything. You're at full health. You have all your spell slots. You have all your abilities. All your stuff comes back. It's like fucking magic, right? I don't know why. I really like it. It's like a fun thing for me and me alone. Do you guys think that that's fine?
I think it's an awesome idea. Love it.
Yeah.
Works.
Yeah, I mean, that's really one of the few things that I put in that doesn't really make sense in the world, but like, I'm fine with it. If a situation comes up where it like messes something up, I'll still gonna do it and be like, I'm an idiot for saying I was going to do that, but here we are now. Wunderbar. Game style. This is largely a sandbox. Feel free to do what you'd like to do, so long as it progresses the story, or any story, not the story, a story. Yeah. Wherever it goes, it goes. I've had great sessions where people just sat around at a tavern for the entire time and either planned something or shot the shit or played cards. I've had great sessions where they did 5 rooms of a dungeon faster than I thought they were going to, and everything in between. So don't worry about pacing. Don't worry about things like that. That's on me. If something's taking too long, I'll tell you. If something doesn't take long enough, that's the way the game goes. I'm fine with it. Makes sense?
Yep.
For sure.
Yep.
So I'm going to first, I'm going to have you guys take. So you are in. We're going to talk now about the town and the towns in the world.
I have one quick mechanic question, if you don't mind me interrupting you.
Yeah, no.
How do you like to do charisma rolls? Because I find those can be, there's very much a style thing of like, some people prefer just do the roll first so you can then narrate yourself as a blubbering fool versus really suave dude. Some people say like, oh, if you acted very suave, now you get advantage. You acted like an idiot, you get disadvantage. How do you try to
I think
those two things?
I do both of those. I do both of those, right? So like, there will be times I think where you'll come up and have a conversation with someone and you say something that either triggers something in them that I'll say to you, make a charisma check. And that bases it off of how this person perceives it rather than how you portrayed it. However, there will be other times where if you want to attempt to persuade someone, I'm perfectly fine with you saying, I would like to attempt to persuade him of this. And then I'll say, make a roll. And then we'll talk about how the roll went after the fact. I don't think that being one way or the other is right. I feel like not every situation makes sense for both of those things. And that's kind of how I do it. I do a lot by feel, right? Like, does that feel right? Does that feel wrong? And I'll say that a lot to you guys. I've probably said it 100 times so far, right? Like, I'm going to rule on this. Does that feel right? Does that make sense? Does that jive with you? Is that fair? Because that's something that I really want to, I just don't want you to feel like you're shortchanged, right? I want you to feel like you're having fun. So if you are a bard and you can't think of anything funny to say and you roll a 23, then you don't have to, because your guy did it for you. Your person did it for you. You know, like, I play it both ways. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Cool.
I'm not very strict, honestly. Like, there's not a lot that I'm gonna hard no, but the things that I hard no, I hard no. Yes, so I'm not going to give you guys a world map today. Instead, what we're going to do is I'm going to describe 3 options. So you as a group are going to have 3 choices of 3 places that you're going to start. Your characters will be from these places. They're all small towns, 500 or so people in them. They're 3 very distinct locales that exist in the same world. They don't necessarily have to be from that exact town, but they're from a very close proximity to it, right? They're familiar with it. They can all be from the town, or none of them can be, but they have to be in this vicinity. Yeah, does that make sense? So you're in the world of Alanthea. Various climates, various possibilities for creatures and dynasties and things like that. The world is not crazily developed. There's no technology that we know today. Think of it in the 1200s, right? Like there's stuff, and there are certainly civilizations, and there are certainly large cities, but the vast majority of the world is untamed, is unknown, or is long forgotten. You dig it?
Sounds kind of Game of Thrones type.
It's honestly, I'm like one of the only people in the world who's never watched that show from front to back, but I believe that. I've seen the most of it. Listen, the Red Wedding was the thing. I was just the actions were just unbelievable. I feel like no character would ever act that. Sorry, I'm getting just something like that. Yes. No. Okay. So I'm going to pull up on the first page your first option. So if you want to jump on over to Roll20, I'll put it on the stream now. So this is the town. So they're all very similar ideas in that they're all independently governed. There's about 500 people in each of them. And what was the other thing? They all have their own industry. So Fellas is a European-style fantasy town surrounded by Western European-style forests. The industry in the town is farming. Yeah, cabbage mostly, some wheat as well. Up next, and we'll come back to these. I'm going to give you just a little more info too. Is the town of Taika. So Taika is definitely oh boy, let's see if I can do this. As soon as it gets technical, your boy falls apart. So Taika is a town that's in a dense jungle that's built around marshlands, and the industry there is wine. They make wine there. I have another write-up on all of these towns, and once you guys choose a town, you'll learn more about them. And the last is Jadara. So Jadara is Jadara's a desert town that's situated around an oasis. There's dunes and sand everywhere. The industry there is mining, mostly copper. So what I want to do is, these environments are existing, right? They exist within the world. So if you don't choose one of those three environments, that doesn't mean that your characters won't go to them. You probably won't go to those specific towns because they're small, and there's other things in the region that would probably garner your interest. That being said, you're going to spend at least the very beginning of the game in those situations, in that climate, in that environment, around those people, in that town. I'm not telling you what you're doing yet, but those are the three options. Now I'm going to get a little more specific on each of them just to give you a little more knowledge, but after that I want you guys to choose where you want to start. So Fellas is in the east, and it's been around for hundreds of years. It's a largely communal lifestyle, with most of the people working at either Greybane's cabbage farm in the north. Let me put this on your screen so you guys can see it. That would be nice. With mostly Greybane's cabbage farm to the north or Brainop's wheat farm to the south. The middle class have their own plots of land that they grow specialty crops on to trade at the bazaar on the east side of town. And days of farming and hard work are capped off at the Yawning Cow, which is an inn on the southeastern, like probably what is that, 7 o'clock on the map.
Southeastern wouldn't be 7 o'clock. Southeastern would be like
Yeah,
4 or 5 o'clock.
It would be southwestern. It's at one of the junctions there. It's the large blue building.
Keeping them honest. I like it already.
Yeah, thank you. I get that. Listen, east and west. Whew, I get those confused all the time. Up next is Taika. So, Taika is a newly established, like less than 100 years town in the jungles of the West. It sprung up once people discovered the pocket of Dionypsis trees that live in the town's center. They're beautiful and rare. The trees give a vibrant red fruit year round that the townsfolk use to make wine from. The houses in the area tend to have raised foundations because the area is prone to flood. Coolio. And up next is Jadara. So Jadara is a relatively established town that's in the north. The gleaming oasis in the center of the town is a stark contrast to the karst desert that surrounds it. The marketplace in the northwest is home to shops and stalls of all sorts, as craftsmen and tradesmen are common, dealing with the mines. Mayor, how did I say that? You ever type a name out and you're like, I'm gonna call him Mayor Crowley. Mayor Crowley's home sits to the north, near his pristine garden. So those are your choices. That is going to be at the inception of this campaign, where you'll be spending a lot of your time, and also where a lot of your characters are from. Notice I didn't point out anything about religion. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. They all have worship places and worship halls, so feel free to incorporate that into the choice that you make as well. Don't feel as though you can't. But again, you guys are all going to be relatively young adventurers in their early 20s, not having experienced a lot. Most of these towns haven't had a lot of give or take between them, because a lot of the wilds are untamed and unknown. So it exists, and there would have been places that your character will be familiar with through maybe only hearing about it. But, you know, we're not 20-year-old world travelers. I've been here, I've been there, I've seen this, I've seen that. You've grown up in a small town. Your neighbors know you, you know your neighbors. Though that is the situation, those are the surroundings. What are your early thoughts? What are your early impressions? Would you like me to change the map so you guys can look at it? Okay.
The one thing that jumps to my mind immediately is the kind of the concept of a bard probably wouldn't exist in one of these small towns. So I mean, I can either I
want to make a name for himself.
Owning your craft, you read about it in a book. You're
been obsessed about it.
Your hopes and dreams.
And that's the biggest thing too, right? So a level 10 bard probably wouldn't, but a level 2 bard could certainly, right? You know, they all have inns where performances could be held, and you know, maybe you're a regular there, and people don't have a frame of reference and think you're fucking great. You know, like it could be something like that. So I think that there's enough versatility too that also, well, I think there's enough versatility built in that we can make work whatever we need to make work. But if you think something's missing from one of those towns and you want something to be there, let's rap. Let's do it. I want to talk. Like I said, I don't want you to feel hindered in any way by your character choice, by the towns that I'm starting you in. So bards, maybe, but I could see it working for sure. Or you know, any class, hopefully.
Okay. I mean, essentially, like the concept that I had in mind, and again, I'm certainly flexible on this, is a bard with the charlatan background.
Okay.
Which, if he's a small town, he grew up here, and everyone knows him. You can't really be a charlatan. You can't be a fraud because everybody knows you.
Well, I mean, you could be great in his own mind.
Could be why you need to leave town.
Well, right.
Figured out your thing.
And two, something else I want to point out is, before you guys get into creating specifically what the characters are, I'm going to set the scene on what you guys are going to be getting involved with. So yes and no, right? Like they're especially with what it is I think you guys are going to be doing. I think I don't think that a bard would not fit. And there's more that we can do with it as well. Having a charlatan background doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to be in one of these towns. Like everybody, you've been to a small town that has that one guy that everybody's like, I don't know about him, but he has some pretty good friends. Could be something as simple as that,
Fair enough. Or I suppose I could always go with the entertainer background, and that works as well. So.
Sure. Yeah.
Or you just be the guy who runs a craps table behind the local bar that pretend no one knows about. I don't know.
Yeah. Cool. What are your other thoughts? What else are we thinking?
Well, personally, I think I like Jadara and the jungle one better than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my own opinion.
I had a feeling as I'm writing them up, I was like, these are probably going to be the ones.
Based on what you've said so far, like religion and things being like whatever it needs to be for these towns, this is unlikely to matter. But how are like the variety of D&D races arranged in these places?
That's a good question. I should have mentioned as well. So it is moldable. It's flexible. It's not set in stone one way or the other. Like, I have a lot of things that I have planned out, but when it comes to things like that, I didn't want to influence your choice one way or the other. There are human settlements, there are orcish and gnomish and otherwise race-based settlements, but in these small towns, it doesn't have that. Yeah, maybe you guys decide you all want to be humans, and then sure, it's a human town. But don't feel restricted in any way. We'll make it work with the story that we tell. The story that I plan, all of the stories that I plan have largely nothing to do with that. So
cool.
Feel free to, aside from whatever the hell I said previously with regards to races, feel free to go ham. I mean, it is as likely a tiefling exists as a dragonborn as a human in these places. So yeah,
everything except for Warforged, correct?
Except for robots. No robots. Sorry, magic robots.
I think so. My initial impression is Jajara works the easiest for my character concepts, but that also the other ones would all work. So I don't think I have a strong preference, and I'm curious what the rest of you think.
I think I can.
Funny, I'm going to be a third person saying. Sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
You go ahead. All right. So I mean, I'm the third person who's going to be saying this, but Jadara appeals to me and my character the most. So I think that might be it.
You like Jadara? Okay.
Yeah.
What do you got for me?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Jadara. I think it makes the most sense with the age range that we're looking for. I mean, we could pull off the other ones with my character, I think, but I think it would make a little bit less sense. I mean, I think you can pull it off wherever, um, top three, whatever. But I think ranking that one, I think is my first choice. I think too,
Okay.
Jadara.
So we're leaning towards a desert campaign.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, Jadara does seem the most exotic of all of them. So
Sure.
Right.
Sure. All right. So Jadara it is. Nice choice. I'm going to put that back up just one more time so everybody can have a nice big look at it. but
Still up.
Not on the stream.
Oh.
Yeah. So we're going to be in the desert town of Jadara to start out, which is cool. I was kind of hoping that you would pick that. Nice.
Hence, you put all the nice little, cool little buildings in there and whatnot.
Yeah.
right, he was subtly influencing us. Notice that his background is all like sand colored. It was
It's like Jadara. I think you mentioned Jadara a few more times.
Right.
Like I don't even remember what the other one names were.
right. You could choose any of these, including Jadara.
Nice.
Pristine Garden has me intrigued.
Cool. So, who are you? What is the plan? What are you guys up to? What the hell is going on? So, you four are willing and participants in joining up with a group called the Rising Tide. The Rising Tide is an organization in Alanthea that is dedicated to advancing civilization. It has chapters in most of the major cities throughout the world that seeks out individuals to hold back the wilds, right? To tame the wilds. Recently, they have begun expanding into smaller locales with more untamed surroundings, and your group eagerly has accepted to sign up. So you are going to be establishing this chapter of the Rising Tide in the city of Jadara. Opinions on the Rising Tide varies from person to person. A lot of folks in small towns aren't concerned with it. A lot of folks are happy to see a member of the organization because this means they'll help solve whatever problem is at hand. Other people are unhappy with the organization because the organization's means aren't always free of collateral damage. Whatever side of the fence Jadara sits on, a chapter of the Rising Tide being established in that town will be sure to put it on the map. So we can get into, when we get into this character creation part now, we can talk about if there are relationships between any of you guys that you heard about it and you're like, this is fucking great. Maybe you're bored with your life. Maybe you're a charlatan and you're like, this seems like a great way to make my presence be beneficial. Maybe you're, the possibilities with this are endless. I will say that this is largely going to be a good campaign. We're not terrorizing villagers. You're not terrorizing villagers. You are the villagers who I am terrorizing. Wait, no. Nobody's being terrorized. All right, I don't know. Probably no terror. Like very small amounts of terror. Terrorizing. But yeah, so that's the scene. Those are the things that we have. So you guys are doing standard spreads, standard array stats. I think that you guys all have a pretty decent idea on what it is that you would like to be, and how you want your character to be. I think that what we should talk about now, and this is why I didn't want to put too much emphasis on the backstory, is because, you know, how you're tied into joining this organization really is the only piece of backstory that is important. Because the rest of it we can flesh out later, or you can keep private. But the thing that we need to answer, the question that we need to answer, is why does your character become involved with this organization? They're not like they're not barbarians who capture you and force you to do it. Like, this is all you're joining. You've heard about this opportunity, and you either are proud of your town and you want to put your town's good name out there. You want to show your stuff. You know that they're looking for remarkable individuals, and you feel like you're a remarkable individual. You know that they're good and they help people, and man, you really want to do that. What's our hook? How do we know each other? How do these characters work? Why on earth would they be here? What do you guys think?
I know for at least for my cleric that I'm attempting to build here, his deity focuses heavily on competition and striving to prove that you are worthy of being given the gifts of the clericship that you have. So I think that is just any chance to compete, any chance to show strength, any chance to bring good to the people, I think is a valid reason for my guy to join up with this
Okay,
organization.
I love it. What else do we got? Well, let me put it to you like this. Do any of you guys think that you would be, obviously you would be at least loosely familiar with one another, right? Like, you're going to at least somewhat know each other. Will you be friends coming into this? Will you be related to one another? Will you be rivals coming into this? I think that's a major question that we should ask and answer, because like I said, there will be some familiarity between you at a very, maybe even a very baseline level of, I went to a big high school and I've seen that dude's face. Could be that. Could be more intimate. It could be more personal. It could be less. It could be, like I said, it doesn't, you know, what do you guys think?
Well, yeah, if these towns are 500 people about, then chances are we've, you know, most people will at least know each other or know of each other.
Especially being around the same age, yeah?
Yeah.
Right. Been to the same parties, maybe drank a beer with each other, shared a beer.
Sure.
So the character I'd been thinking of was a Circle of the Land druid, and probably someone who belonged to nomadic tribe.
Right.
So not like a hippie druid that's just hanging in the forest meditating, but maybe someone who helps like people traverse various lands, but like
Dope.
it's still part of this region, right?
Yeah.
And this is probably a way station. It's an oasis. So we would be coming here. So I probably am not your guys' best bud,
Yeah.
because I don't live in town per se, but I come in and I would trade. Like I would have like some spices from the town, you know, only 10 miles away, but you know, who goes to town 10 miles away? We're all in a small
Especially
little
through
town.
the desert, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's too, you know, a druid would be fun here because the one of the things with Jadara is they are, you know, the sand is actively fighting to take the town back, right? They're not, it isn't an advanced civilization to the point where that's not an issue, right? Like sometimes depending on the season, depending on the year, parts of the town they'll have to move to a different part as the sand has reclaimed it. So having a druid around that focuses on something like that, I think makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, and I figure I probably like know you guys, and that I've come into town, I've sold some like fancy wares from the next town over, and then I'd be like, I have a ton of money. I'm 19. I'm gonna go buy a bunch of beer. So I'm sure I've met you guys at the
Right.
pub or whatever our local activity places. But maybe I didn't grow up with you. I'm a little bit more of an outsider, but I'm friendly because I've bought everyone beers before.
Okay.
Right. So I think what I was thinking of is a half orc monk in a monastery, probably at the edge, on the outskirts of Judara.
Okay.
So my character would not have interacted with the townsfolk that much, except occasionally to run into town to buy supplies. But being a half orc monk, he probably stands out. I think he's probably going to be the only half orc monk in the entire temple or monastery. So I think maybe everyone will be a little bit more familiar with me than I would be with the townsfolk, because I probably would have stood out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I think that's an interesting way to tie it in. And yeah, I mean there would absolutely be monastery like a monastery out there. Yeah, I have no issues with that whatsoever, especially depending on how how the interaction works. Like the kind of character that you are, would be I think it works. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Something too we kind of talked about with but we didn't talk about with Dylan or Jet, like why would your character be answering this call to action?
All right, so I think for my half orc character, he used to be a soldier. That's going to be his background. He's a deserter. He really just joined the monastery purely for the free food, the free shelter, and just to get away from all of that, all the killing and everything.
Right.
But he's never really bought into the entire lifestyle. He's still he's not exactly your typical monk, at one with the world, at peace with himself. He still drinks, he parties. He thinks he's pulling a fast one on everybody in the monastery. But the running joke is that everybody knows he's a little bit of everybody knows he's not all that he pretends to be. Right. So I think he's been there for a few years. Finally, the head of the order comes up to him and says, we would love to have you here. We want to keep you here. But to be honest, for yourself, there is some sort of inner conflict that's going on within yourself, and you really do need to go and resolve that. So for your own sake and for your own good, maybe you can join this rising tide order and find yourself. Right. It's a bit of an eat, pray, love journey for him.
Yeah, I'm with it.
Like that. Yeah, I think for if my guy is probably a bit of like a trading nomadic group, and this is one of our stopovers, like a way station for us. We want it to be better. Like the tribe I'm part of would love it if this place was put on the map, because it means more money comes in. It means a better stop to stay over in, better trade. And I would say my guy, being like 19 or 20, has just like come of age. So they're not going to send like their head of the group in order to manage this. They want to send the younger people who want to prove themselves. So I want to prove myself. I have finished my druid training stuff.
Yeah.
And so this is a chance for me to like show that I've can do whatever, and then I don't know, maybe the tribe will honor me, or I'll get a reward, or something nice happens if I do a good job.
Yeah.
But like that's my motivation.
Yeah, I'm with it. What do you think, Brent?
I'm thinking that my character, probably my dad, is the town drunk, and he's useless, and so I've kind of kept us afloat by running that back alley poker game or dice game or whatever, and occasionally doing some poetry in the inn and stuff like that to do a few coins. My father would always, when he'd get into a real drunken stupor, he would talk about how like our ancestors were royalty and people should respect us.
Mhm.
And so I'm thinking, well, if our ancestors are royalty, maybe there's something more out there for me. I need to get out of this town
Mhm.
because otherwise I'm going to end up just like him.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Throwing off the shackles of parentage, I think, is a pretty good call to action. Sweet. So yeah, so that's some surface level stuff. I mean, it sounds like you guys are all pretty far along your creation journey. I think what we could do now is, if you have something that you're like, yeah, this is what I'm rolling with. Um, why don't we talk about that? Kind of go down the list, throw out your race, your class, your stats, and give me a physical description of your character. So whoever thinks that they're like on point, I'm not on the fence about anything. Feel free to step up.
Well, I think I think I've pretty much decided. I'm uh, thinking human, variant human, bard,
Okay.
um, physical description, kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Unremarkable,
Okay.
just so that he can he likes being able to be unforgettable when he needs to,
Okay.
so
Kind of shortish, tallish, heavy-set, thin guy.
right, yeah, exactly, yeah. So that's
Okay. So like general any like quirks that you would that you plan on, or are you just like, is everybody planning on maybe just having that kind of develop as you go, or are there things like that would be of note?
one quirk I've got is I thought my guy would have a pair of dice that had not numbers on them but like symbols on them, and he would always tell people that they were carved from the knuckles of a hag.
Okay. Cool.
And so when he has to make a decision or something like that, he'll roll the dice and see what they say.
Nice. Yeah, I'm with that. That's cool. That's super cool. Do you have I what you're going variant human? What feat are you thinking?
I'm not sure. I was thinking possibly, and this is one that DMs often hate, but I was thinking lucky because it just kind of goes with his personality.
With the dice, yeah. I mean, I think it makes sense. I don't hate it. I think
Okay.
it's cool. Yeah.
Good feet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good feat, but characterally, which is a word, I think it makes sense. I'm with it. So like kind of typical spread across the board on that: high charisma, high dex.
Yeah, that's what I'm
What?
thinking. High dex, high charisma. I'm thinking for my musical instruments, because I'm thinking more of a poet.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
as a spell focus, I was thinking he would use zills, which are those tiny little symbols. And so
couldn't
when
love
he's
that more.
doing his poet, it's lending the cadence and stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't love that more.
I like that. That's cool.
That's awesome. That really
Yeah,
is awesome.
very very much on board with that. What do you fight with?
I was thinking maybe I was actually thinking maybe rapier, but
Yeah.
if we're going with a sand thing, I could also go scimitar.
Yeah. So here's my thoughts. This is something else that I forgot about this pet peeve. So thanks for bringing that up. I think that the rapier is so stupid. I think that I'm fine with allowing you to have a D8 weapon, right? Because that's the point, right? It's definitely the best finesse weapon. Unquestionably, it is the best finesse weapon. I think, however, the fact that it is as strong as it is mind-boggling to me. I think it is silly. I think it is, unless you're like, I want my character to have a rapier, specifically a rapier, I will give you a D8 weapon and we will call it something else. It just drives me insane that it is so good, and it's like, Did you imagine that? You imagine this guy showing up with a fucking rapier?
Let's go fencing a little
Could
bit.
you imagine that? It's insane to me. So I have no problem giving you the benefits of a rapier. If you want it to be a rapier, then have it be a rapier. Personally, I feel like people pick it because they get shoehorned into it because it's easily the best weapon. So if you want it to be that, by all means. If you want it to be something else, it can be that in name. I'll still let it do piercing if you want it to do piercing. I'm fine with it. But just picturing that in my head drives me bananas.
Yeah, I don't even care about the D8 or whatever. It's just with bards, they're very limited to what weapons they're allowed.
Yeah, I understand
You know,
that. Right.
but
And,
so
but like I said, if you want to have the benefits of the damage, that's fine. If that's the sole reason that you're picking the rapier, then my God, let's call it something else. Please.
Yeah, no, I mean,
sanity.
I'm actually figuring this guy's probably going to be kind of a coward.
Okay.
So he's not going to want to engage. So I was thinking actually like one of the weapons that bards get are a hand crossbow.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of, I'll have a melee weapon for when I have to use it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just want to even give me, like I said, a short sword, or because scimitars actually aren't on my list.
Yeah, you could totally have a scimitar. That's fine.
So, yeah, sure. Scimitar, hand crossbow, and
boom.
Because definitely going to be a finesse fighter when he does fight, you know, high dex.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't think it changes and that's a great, I feel like, indication of how I plan on running the game. Like, I don't think it changes the game anyway mechanically. I don't think it breaks anything. Flavor-wise, it's a little different, and I prefer it. So cool. I like it.
All right.
What's he wearing?
Well, he's probably going to, you know, if we're a typical desert town, I'm thinking, you know, it's going to be more like the desert type of garb and such. He'll probably have a set of nicer clothes for when he's performing or running a game. Cool. You know, I'm almost thinking, obviously not as fancy as like when Aladdin shows up at the palace as Prince Aladdin or whatever, but again, he'd probably have something nicer, you know, whereas some people might have Sunday clothes for the temple, they're his work clothes.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, you know, it's a largely mining town. So, you know, it's a lot of like salt of the earth. So the gambling circles and stuff showing up in something that would be a little nicer would probably work to the character's benefit. Right. And yeah, and so and as we've been talking and stuff like that, you know, one of the things with the charlatan background is they get an alternate identity, which obviously wouldn't work in a small town because everybody already knows me. But going off of that whole thing of dad says that we were once royalty or whatever, once we start traveling, if I can start impersonating a lost prince or something like that. Right, that can be my other identity. These guys would obviously know who I really am, but I can, you know, and so those nicer clothes will come into play for that as well. I'm totally with it. Anything else of note you think you should point out about where you sit? We can always come back to this is an open forum, so if you think of something later on, we get somebody else.
Okay.
Shout it out.
Yeah, you can move on to someone else. I'm actually going to run to the restroom.
Perfect. Who else has something for me? Who else is far along? Who else? What do we got? Don't speak all at once.
I'm far along if you want me to go. I feel like I'm fairly far along with this Tempest Cleric that I'm looking forward to kind of evolving into something. So I'm thinking for the race, I'm thinking the Fearbulg, and I dispute that it's a bovine class. I don't think it's a cow guy. I dispute it. I think it's more of I envision him looking like almost like the Nords of Skyrim, but like a little bit more giant.
He doesn't need a helmet.
Right.
He already has the horns on his head.
Right. He's not a bovine. He's not a bovine, man. I dispute that. But I'm thinking, my guy, he's gonna be. You can tell he's got some size. He's still growing. He's not full size yet.
Yeah,
so
he's like beefy.
Right. He's getting there though. He's
like
still
beef.
A little bit lanky. Right. Like beef. Well, like he's gonna probably max out at about almost 8 feet, but right now he's probably a little under 7. So he's got room to grow.
Yeah,
Definitely still got muscle to put on. Still a towering dude.
big guy.
Big guy, gray kind of tinted skin.
Yeah.
I'll
What
give you
color
like
are his cow spots?
he has like a
Sorry,
sunburned
that's
nose.
the last one.
Sunburned nose. That's about as close as I'm getting to a cow nose or a bovine nose.
I'm with it.
Interesting feature. Hair is going to be like a dark walnut brown with a hint of red, but it's going to be like statically charged.
Nice.
So, you know, like
Bzzz.
yeah, it's
love
you
it.
like touch a balloon, you know.
Yeah.
Comes up. That's how it's going to be looking. It's gonna,
Yeah. Well, Tempest Cleric makes sense.
Yeah, gonna have a thick bushy beard, navy covered kind of cloak. Definitely rocking chainmail for right now, blackened from years of been working or casting thunder or lightning or whatever it is.
Dealing with it, yeah.
Yeah. Definitely doing a shield. Definitely rocking a weathered warhammer. Sigil is going to be on the
shield.
On the shield, it's going to be broadsword gripped in a fist, holding lightning hilt.
I like
So
that. That's cool.
Badass.
That's awesome. Yeah. What do we got?
High wisdom.
Mhm.
Pretty strong. Not the strongest. Definitely going to get stronger as these years goes on. But I'm pretty strong and not very intelligent.
Not very intelligent. That makes sense.
Not
Cows are not known for their. All right, I kept saying it. I said I was going to stop, and
I dispute it, man. I dispute the bovine class.
I mean, you know, it could go either way.
I just imagine him as I kind of envision him as a larger, like full size, either dwarf or gnome, like a dwarf,
Right.
a full size dwarf, not like a short little dwarf. You know,
Yeah,
like,
no. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think that's fair. I do like to tease you about the cow.
It's a weird feature like bovine, like that. That's what you're coming up with. I mean, there's I guess there's tabaxi and turtles and whatnot. So why not have a cow class? But I dispute. He's a fey-oriented giant.
Yeah.
How does that become clown? Giant is a clown. A giant isn't a cow.
Maybe they would be if they were smaller. Cows are just giant dogs.
So you're saying like maybe a cow, maybe a giant like pulled some shit with a cow, and that's how.
I think how it's like the Zeus. It's like the myth of Zeus, right? The bull. I don't know. That might be where
I'm
Furbolgs
going Warhammer,
Yep.
Warhammer Shield, and I'll be throwing out
Nice.
heals. I'll be healing a lot of people, blessing the ground people walk on.
I like that. All right, Jet or Dylan, do you guys have anything?
So half orc can say monk. So he's obviously a little bit heavier on the strength side, just because I'm just playing a little bit the stereotypes. He's a half orc, but at the same time, I think his years of living with the monk have honed his dexterity a little bit. So those are his primary stats. I think he's going to be lacking a little bit in the wisdom and intelligence department. This hulking half-orc character, 7 feet, close to 8 feet, decked out in, again, very typical saffron monk robes, at least at the start. And again, using a very stereotypical quarter staff, at least at the beginning. But I'm kind of hoping after a level or two and he gets a little bit more comfortable with embracing his heritage, I'm going to transition him towards a warhammer.
Cool. Yeah, with a Kensa, you can definitely do that. I've always thought like that would be I feel like it's a cool character, like running around with a two-handed hammer, but he's a ninja. Like, yeah, that's cool. I'm on board with that.
I think some of his some of his quirks, at least at the start, is he's still going to try, at least at the beginning, to pass off as a typical monk. He's going to go around and try to be, peace be with all of you, but he's probably going to be very bad at it. So I kind of want it to be this thing where, again, this probably running a meta joke where everybody he meets, NPCs, vendors, and all of that, everybody can instantly tell his heart really isn't into it. He's just saying the words, saying whatever it is that he thinks monks usually say, but he's not fooling anybody.
That's cool. And what do you got, Dylan?
So a little bit of your opinion on this, since I didn't quite know the setting we'd be in, or the locale. I thought it'd be cool to be a genasi, so someone with a little elemental blood. Again, I'm part of a nomadic group. We're like traveling through the sands.
Sure.
Mechanically, the only one that really makes sense for a druid would be water, because they
right.
give you a wisdom bonus. But I think fire makes more sense if I'm in the desert.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something you'd have a strong opinion.
I mean,
about,
I
kind of
could
restricting
see.
that.
I mean, I don't know that fire, water, or earth wouldn't make sense. I think that being a water genasi would be maybe it is a burden for you to be making these long treks because you are heavily geared in the desert, right? Like, so establishing yourself in a town with something like the Gleaming Oasis would would be like a relief.
That's true.
For you.
Yeah, and
you know?
and or like being able to do minor water things is handy in a place where
would
water's
benefit
scarce.
the other people as well. So I don't know that. Yeah, I don't think that you could say any of them wouldn't make sense.
All right.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine and dandy with any of them.
Probably a then yeah, let's say a water genasi.
Cool.
And as a result, I would say I'm like a little bit of an anime look, but like heavily bandaged up, like I'm trying to have like tightly covered, trying to protect myself from the sun, keep my sweat inside myself.
Right.
And fairly lithe, like not like a big heavy stout guy, a little more I'm actually like probably strength will be average, but someone who's a little bit more used to like running around and hunting with speed. So like someone who, I mean, a character definitely be someone who's like hunted. I don't know, whatever you find to hunt in a desert, but that whatever that is, he hunts.
Yeah.
And I deliberately want to make a character that is not charismatic, because I think that's a very easy thing. Charisma is so helpful in the game. It's very easy to make someone who is. No offense, Bard. Bards are awesome. I love but someone who like isn't used to civilization. I've gotten my little group of traders that I hang out with, and so when I go into town, it's basically for transactions.
Yeah, it's
and that's it. So I don't really know how to talk to people in a way that's unfamiliar to me. And so like charisma definitely be my low stat. And otherwise probably wisdom and dexterity. Someone who's probably hunts with like a spear and like a wicker shield, something very lightweight to have in the desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think quirks like a little bit that's just gonna come into the charisma bit where like my guy is he's probably gonna say things that are like weird, not necessarily awkward, but like ill-suited to a situation. So as an advance warning, I may say something that angers someone we're trying to make friends with, but hopefully not too bad.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean that's a good what the hell, hook. There we go. Yeah. That's awesome. So we do you guys have any other questions, comment? Statistically, where you sitting? You said low charisma, and you're just what, like whiz and
so Wiz and Dex. Wiz and Dex would be my two highest, and then Con, I get a little boost from being genasi regardless. So something in the middle there. And then strength is probably a 10, charisma at 8, intelligence at like 11 or something.
I like it. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we get in there? Expect sessions to run 3 to 4 hours, depending. I will be doing a break halfway through. But I want you guys to stick around a little bit after the stream ends, just so we can chat offline.
Starting gold.
How do you want us to handle starting equipment and stuff?
So starting equipment, is entirely up to you. If you're picking the starting equipment, the character class equipment, you have that, and then we're gonna roll at the start of the next session for whatever extra gold your character would come with. The way that I do hit points too is if you roll less than what the average is for gaining hit points, then you get the average. So you can only have better than average hit points. You can't have lower than average. I feel like
you max at level 1, correct?
Well, the level 1 is a set number.
Yeah.
Level 1's a set number, but the rest of them are varied. So you're only gonna, you can do it offline. You can put it in the Roll20 if you want. But like I said, honor system, and that's, I think, one of the biggest things that I want to, put out there is like, play the game in a fun way, right? Like don't get hung up on this, that, or the other thing. Just try to have fun, and I think that it'll come through.
Cool. So I wrote like a little like list of questions I wanted to make sure we got through, and you got through like almost all of them.
Okay.
But some of them were more of me to the other players, more so than me.
Please. Yeah, and that's another thing that this session 0 I would like to emphasize is it's not just me. Like all of you have to cohese, I believe is the word.
Yeah. So I wrote a couple things down. One is like with a new group, I think one of the hardest things is dissociating yourself from in-character conflict. So like if we're all like getting into it, but it's fun, and actually as people we're like totally down to be having angry people yelling at each other, or whatever the situation may call for. Is there anything that you like to do to step away? Is there anything any of you like to have as a mechanic to say like, yeah, we are angry people as characters, but as players, this is an awesome fun time? Like anything that you have done in the past or that matters to you? If that question made sense.
I'm not fully understanding what you're asking. So
you're asking for a safe word, I think.
Yeah, there's something to that effect. I know like some people have like the X card, which is like, hey, I am okay with this, let's keep going, this is fun. Is there anything that you as like try to use to make sure that you're happy with that? And a safe word is a mechanism for that. It's like, hey, let's like take a break, I'm feeling uncomfortable. But it's also like the opposite of like, hey, I actually enjoy this, don't pay attention to me looking like an angry person, I'm actually very happy. If that makes sense.
Honestly, for me, I have never run into a situation where I haven't been able to handle or dissociate what's going on in the game. So I mean, if your character gets in my character's face, I can run with that. Now, if at the end of the stream, we're out of character and you say you're an asshole, then I say, well, let's talk about this a little bit, But if
pressing can help, yeah.
But if we're going head to head in the game, and then afterwards you're like, oh, that was fun, what'd you think? I'll be like, bring it, that's awesome. So yeah, I personally, I don't think you guys have to worry about that for me.
Yeah, me either. I'm on the same page. Any style of play, conflict, happiness, whatever's going on, I think it's all in good fun. No matter how, any way you cut it. If we feel like someone in the group is a rat or a snitch, and we're trying to question them, I think that's a great time, and I think it makes us all kind of cohese better, because we either come out of there thinking they're a rat, or we build trust as a result of we've tortured them enough and figured that they're not a rat. I believe what he says now, because you know what I mean?
I think that's one of the biggest things that is hard, I think, for players to do, for everyone to do, but players, is that is to, while you're trying very hard to put yourself into this person's shoes, disassociating this person that's talking to you from the person that's talking to you can be tricky sometimes. So that's something I think that we have to keep in mind. It doesn't sound like it's going to be a problem, but I do think that it should be stated.
Valid question, though. I think it's legitimate.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to how you play the socially awkward Outlander.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. I have an idea or two, but I mean, until it comes in contact with another human being. We'll see how it actually
yeah,
plays out.
Everybody
Yeah.
has a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
Yeah.
I think one more thing I want to kind of point out on that note too. You know, we're not voice actors. If you want to do a voice of your character, you keep it up. You're great at it. Fucking, that's the greatest thing in the world. Continue to do that. However, I'm going to assume that unless you're narrating a character's actions, that what you are saying, your character is saying. With regards to where your character is, if you run up on a guard and your group runs up on a guard and you take a pause to look at your friend and said, should we kill this person? That person heard you say that. Right? So bear in mind that way you don't have the messy, you know, if you have an out of game question, let me know that it's an out of game question. But yeah, there's a lot of things too that are tricky when you negotiate with that. We can change that as we go, seeing how we play with each other. But I think a general rule would be, unless you're narrating an action or asking a question of the DM, what you say is what your character says. Is that a fair way to do this?
I actually prefer it that way. Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Elmary's moving to a completely different part of the house.
Gotta start dinner.
There you go. Only thing on my list is, this is more of like a thing I like to tell people, which is, in general, as a character that I play, I like to make things. I don't always want to be like an instigator per se, but like I'd rather like see what can happen in the game than wait or talk through. I think there's a trap to fall into where you can say like, hey, I'm walking down a corridor and I am using my perception constantly to look in every wall. I'm using my mage hand to check the floor for traps. I'm doing all these things. And to a degree that makes sense. Like paranoia is useful in dungeon, but if you say that every time you do things, it gets old. I guess that's like my pet peeve as a player, which is like at some point, whatever, like things are going to happen or they won't. So by and large, I tend to not narrate like, hey, I am checking for all these things unless I'm doing something really specific, like opening up a catacomb crypt where, hey, maybe there's like a ghost inside that's going to eat me. That's something I might want to check for.
Right. Yeah.
So like that's something I like to warn. It's like I'm not going to be Leroy Jenkins. I'm not just going to run into the second I see an encounter. I'm going to angrily run at it with my spear. I'll die. But I'm not going to plan ad nauseum. And I think the corollary to that is usually I want to make sure that to some degree you as a DM are that I can like trust you that would I encounter a trap that is lower in difficulty or like a tiger pit in the ground that I actually probably would notice, that you would inform me of that rather than like me having explicitly say I am looking for tiger pits or whatever that might be.
I don't like to gotcha. I don't like that. I think that's dumb. I mean, because I created the thing. I'm the one that's, telling you where things are. And if your character would see something or would notice something, then your character sees or notices that thing. That's what a lot of passive perception, I think, plays into. If there is something unusual about the room or about a place, then that's going to be pointed out, right? Like, I agree with that. I agree with that. I think that that's a good way to play it. I think, like I said, pacing is important and not having it be a slog of checking every nook and cranny of every single place, every single time, forever. I don't think that is fun to watch or to play. So yeah,
I think the way that I typically play too is I go on the experiences of the character as well. Like, so say we came across some trap that was, I don't know, you come across a situation where there were flags there. Those flags became crazy creatures that had tried to attack you and more like kill one of your players. Next time you come across a flag, you can take a little second, maybe take a second look at it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I don't do it for across the board on everything. Just moving forward. Your experience is, hey, we almost lost someone back there to a flag. So hey, check that. Take a second look at that flag.
Yeah, I'm with it. What else you got?
Last thing on my list was for the group. Do any of you have like meta roles that you like to do, such as like keeping track of party inventory or anything that's more not actually in game, but more like mechanical that like you actually find some people legitimately just love keeping track of party inventory and things like that. Is there anything that you, as a player within the group, like to do?
Like note taking, lore things, things like that. Yeah.
I can take on any of those. I'm comfortable taking on any of those roles, but there's not one that I particularly gravitate towards or prefer. So I would leave it to the rest of the group to say, hey, we need somebody to fill this role, and then I would do it.
I don't feel strongly. I know one of my other characters in a different campaign. I'm very heavily like I'm a trinket gatherer and a trophy gatherer from every kill that I've ever done. I take a trophy from every kill. I've done that before. It's not an issue, but I don't see my character doing that amount of trinket.
He means more meta, like you personally.
Outside the game.
Yeah, like who's gonna like keep track of how much random gold we've accumulated over the course of 10 sessions?
Yeah.
And we can just all do that. Like we don't need a person, but
how I typically do in the other ones, like we divvy it up, like depending on how we do it, and just add it to your inventory right then and there.
Yeah.
Unless it's something quick where we have to like snatch all the gold and the place is collapsing around us, we'll divvy it up later, and then that person, whoever has the gold is responsible for keeping that amount.
I think that a function that is actually good for playing online, usually everything playing online is worse than playing in person, but something that is good for playing online is that Roll20 character sheet, because there's like a built-in component to the sheet where notes can be taken and where inventory can be had. I think it's fine if somebody wants to do that, but that is something that's built into this that offline you don't have, right? Like you're not writing everything down ever. I can't tell you how many sessions I played that I didn't even bring something to write with, which people don't like. But yeah, so I think that's a valid question. I think Dylan was just trying to get a banker, if I could be real with you.
Question regarding style, I guess, for you, GM. Mm-hmm. So like on my character, I'm thinking intelligence is going to be one of his lower stats, just because he's not properly educated. He'll have a higher wisdom, the street smarts.
Sure.
Now, the fact that he's got lower intelligence means that, his stats like, or skills like Arcana and History and stuff are going to be crap.
Right.
That being said, since I'm really going to be the only arcane caster in the group, meta-wise, it would make sense for me to take the Identify spell.
Sure.
But I'm thinking the Identify spell would probably, as it fits in with my character's flavor, it would be more him recalling lore about, I've heard about these things before, even though his actual skill set for those the numbers are going to be low. So how do you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that having the stats are kind of important, but it's still not, anybody can do anything, right? So I don't think that having it be necessarily taking up one of the valuable resources that you have is necessary. It could be beneficial. There would be some things that you would get from an Arcana check, but without attuning or the Identify spell, the nature of magic items is going to be a difficult thing for you. That's if you had a 20 intelligence, right? If you're using a skill check to perform an action that would require a resource, it's going to be a harder thing, right? Like a resource meaning you're casting a spell or you are taking an attunement slot away from your character, you're going to get more information than you would with a skill check. Does that jive? Are you guys cool with that?
Now, another thing I'm going to point out to the group as well, just to throw it out there, because of my character's nature, fast talker, con man, if I'm trying to figure something out and I don't know what it is, I'm probably going to make something up anyway. So just to throw it out there to the the players. You know,
Would expect a charlatan to do something like that.
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So, instead of I have no idea what creature made these tracks, it's oh well, that's obviously the legendary bog dragon that
Right. Yeah, hell yeah. I think that's great. I think that again, like that adds depth. That's good. Wunderbar. So if you guys have anything else you want to chat about, do you think I forgot anything? I appreciate the exhaustive list from you, Dylan. That was good.
I think that's it for me. I've exhausted my list.
Wunderbar. So we're gonna conclude the stream now. If you guys want to stick around for just a minute or so afterwards, thanks everybody for watching, and we will be back next week.